No. I hate that it happened and I won't pretend it was easy for me, but I would rather die than be attached to my ex for 18 years.
Ditto.
It was not by choice. I was gutted that I did not have a viable second pregnancy. I had every intention to give my son a sibling. I cried going in, my surrounding family was terrible in this crisis week. Past about day 2, my own husband was horrible and useless. At one point a few days after the hospital we got in a yelling fight over no dinner when he got home. I cried in recovery at the hospital and was given more meds to stop. I still have some truly dreadful comments, remarks, statements directed at me burned in my brain. By the way, he's my ex-husband now. I felt so thrown by this I will not go back to that doctor's office and went to a completely different OBGYN for my third pregnancy that was perfectly textbook and healthy.
This is horrifying. I'm so sorry you went through that, Hart.
At the time I really did. I hated myself. I was in a horrible situation where I was being trafficked and had got pregnant by who knows who. I thought my pimp would let me go when I realized I was pregnant. He didn't, of course. He threatened to kill me if I didn't get it sorted out. There was a clinic walking distance from where we were staying. I went by myself. I was so frightened and I still don't know why I didn't tell someone what was happening to me. That's the bit I regretted most. The fact that I could have stopped it all and I didn't. I carried on. I hated that about myself for a very long time. 10 years almost to the day now, and I'm sad that I was in that situation. But I can see it would have been even worse if I'd tried to carry on. He tried to kill me anyway, and I wouldn't have been allowed custody of my child. I was a mess. Now I've got a 3-year-old daughter who wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened, and I'm very glad that she is.
I'm so glad you're in a better place now.
I made a choice. That was my right to make, with a great deal of consideration, and no hesitation, and I do not regret it for even a millisecond. Because I didn't plan to get pregnant. I didn't want a child. There's no reason needed more than that. Don't create human beings that aren't really wanted. If by some miracle I was in this situation again, I would 1000% without doubt choose to terminate again. Because, to reiterate, I don't want human beings created who aren't truly wanted. Every human deserves to be wanted. Wanted is not the same as loved. If by some crazy misfortune I ended up pregnant without noticing and missed the window to terminate and ended up having the baby, of course I'd love it, and raise that child to the absolute best of my ability with all my love and support and care. But I don't want to be in that position in the first place, and I don't want to raise a child.
Reading this makes me so mad because of how much, in the States, people have to fight, protest, sue, spend against anti-choice bigots when it should be as simple as, I made a choice, or, I didn't want a child, or, it's none of your goddamn business.
I have no regrets. You know who should? The numerous gynos. WHO refused to sterilize me my whole damn life. No, I didn't ever change my mind. If anything, with the state of the world as it is, I'm most satisfied that not bringing a child onto this planet is the best possible outcome for them.
The fact that they allow 18-year-olds to go off and die in war, go $100,000 in debt for college, get married and have babies, etc., but not decide they want to be sterilized is fucking insane. Sorry that was your experience. Every person should have full autonomy over their bodies.
I have had two. I am deeply sad that I had to have two, but the circumstances around both were so incredibly confusing and complex that in those moments they were right for me. I do not regret them at all, but they do make me sad to think back on.
I hope you were able to move on peacefully. Sending positive vibes your way, Sparkling Heart.
I had one 6 weeks ago. It was an incomplete abortion and I was not prepared for the expelled fetus this last weekend. It was quite disorienting. I don't regret getting the abortion. I know it was the right choice but was truly unprepared for this. I have been bleeding for 6 weeks and am so over it.
Same thing happened to me. I had to get emergency operation because the abortion was incomplete. Painful.
Nope. The first time I had sex with this guy, the first got pregnant. I found out he was a raging alcoholic, then I found out I was pregnant. There was no way I was having a kid with him. To top it off, I broke up with him and he would constantly try to pressure me to get an abortion, although I told him I was having one and had it scheduled. I found out later that he moved back home and died in a drunk driving accident on Christmas Eve. He was the only one on the road at the time.
What an intense experience. I hope you're doing okay after it all.
0 regrets. Would make the exact same choice again.
Agreed. And then I did make that choice again. Second time was really hard, but I'm totally over it now and have 0 regrets about both abortions I've had.
0 regrets. Other than that it had to happen. I wish that in the 80s it was easier to access birth control for minors without consent and my mother was more understanding that I was going to have sex despite her lack of willingness to discuss it at all. Shout out to Mrs. Christensen, the most amazing school nurse in the history of school nurses.
Your shoutout made me smile.
I had one in 2016 and have never regretted it. Precautions were taken and they failed. I wasn't mentally or emotionally in a place to have another child at that time. I felt relieved once it was done.
I love these replies. Same here. 0 regrets. It was absolutely the right choice.
I was about to say the same thing. I expected to find the exact opposite.
I had one back when I was 17. For years I regretted it and felt a deep guilt. Especially growing up in a conservative, highly religious farming town. Looking back, now being 27, I don't regret it at all. So many opportunities I would have missed out on if I did follow through with the pregnancy.
Nope, no regrets. Why not? Because I don't want kids.
And that's a reason enough.
I had 2. That was over 10 years ago when I was 24 and with someone who was a nightmare partner. Had I stayed with him I would have been isolated from my family and friends and at mercy of his horrible family. I'm 38 soon and now have 2 beautiful daughters. Sometimes I wonder what my other children would have been like and it makes me a bit sad, but we wouldn't have had a good life. After our relationship ended I traveled the world, dated, made new friends and had so much fun. So when I finally had children when I was ready I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. And my parents were awesome about it, never judged me and they took me to the clinic and paid for it. I miss my parents.
In my spiritual belief, your kids' souls understood and were okay with waiting until you were ready. So you got your kids no matter what. In fact, they may have guided you away from him. Sorry if this sounded weird, but I don't believe in coincidences.
0 regrets. But after losing a baby to stillbirth at 25 weeks, and then a miscarriage at 11 weeks, the emotional turmoil was tough going. I didn't really have a lot of support. Wouldn't ever want to experience it again.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
No regrets. The kid that would have been deserved much better.
Regret it every single day of my life. But I am still pro-choice.
I'm sorry. I hope you give yourself grace in situations of this level of emotional intensity.
No regrets. Would kinda like to peek into the alternate reality where I kept it just to see but certainly not to stay. I'm not sure I want kids and there's so much more I want to do in my life before I do. The partner I was with isn't long-term and has a lot of soul-searching to do himself. I think you just know what's right.
I am very sad that I had to do it but not that I did. 0 regrets. I was severely unwell and pregnancy would have made me potentially permanently disabled.
Nope, absolutely 0 hesitation or regret. A baby would have been an absolute nightmare for me.
I occasionally have what if moments, but have never regretted it.
I had one maybe 7-ish years ago and I absolutely carry a lot of regret and emotional pain from that experience. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make.
I am sorry that you had to get through this. I hope you have sweet people with you that ease the pain.
No regrets. I was 16 and definitely would not have been the type of parent I'd want a child to have. I considered adoption and eventually decided against it. As someone with an absent birth parent, I knew it would be too hard for both of us to live with that abandonment. I'm to the point in my life now where it looks like I may not have children of my own, and I'm okay with that. I think I make a better teacher than parent. I wouldn't have been able to afford to do both, financially or emotionally.
I regret getting pregnant but not the abortion. Very grateful to have access to safe abortions.
Yep, regret. I thought it would ruin my life. But it ruined 2 lives instead. Now I think every day about what my baby would have been like and the guilt of how self-centered I was.
Not at all. I'm not exactly proud of it, but nothing good would have come from carrying the pregnancy though.
I don't regret it, but it wasn't an easy choice to make and I would never want to go through it again. The procedure itself was incredibly traumatic for me, and if I hadn't had my partner with me for support, I don't think I would have been able to cope in the aftermath. The emotions and hormones around it were very raw and painful for some months after. However, once I got some distance from it, I realized that a lot of my negative emotions were related to the pain of the procedure and the treatment I received from the medical professionals who were supposed to be caring for me, rather than because of some denial of a child wish. I had to go through a lot of counseling to come to terms with the medical trauma of it all. I do love children and want to have one someday, but it wasn't the right time for me or my partner and would have been bad for our relationship at that time. I definitely can clearly see that now. Ultimately, what I learned from it is that the right choice doesn't always have to feel good, but it definitely was right, and when I am ready for children, it will be in more stable circumstances.